This cost cap thing isn't going to go away, is it? Now, if I do repeat stuff from the last video I did on the subject, I do apologise, and I also don't know how long this video is going to be, so let's just roll with it, take my time, say what I'll say, and not let anything get in my way. So since the news broke about the cost cap last week, Zak Brown has written a letter to the FIA saying in basic English that what Red Bull has done constitutes cheating, and wants penalties that hit Red Bull both financially and on the track. This letter was also sent to 6 of the other 9 teams, the only exceptions being Aston Martin, Williams and AlphaTauri. Presumably because Aston were found to have not filled in the forms correctly, which is a little harsh considering no overspend was found, and AlphaTauri not involved because of the association they have with Red Bull. Williams were found to have committed the same offence as Aston, for which they were fined $25,000. Now, this letter was also sent to Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who is the president of the FIA, and also to Stefano Domenicali, who is he's the Bernie Ecclestone of things now. And in this letter, he basically outlined his concerns as to how overspending one season can have a knock-on effect into following seasons. The BBC posted snippets of Brown's letter saying, "The FIA has run an extremely thorough, collaborative and open process. We were even given a 1-year dress rehearsal in 2020 with ample opportunity to seek any clarification if details were unclear. So there is no reason for any team to now say they are surprised. The bottom line is any team who has overspent has gained an unfair advantage both in the current and following year's car development. We don't feel a financial penalty alone would be a suitable penalty for an overspend breach or a serious procedural breach. There clearly needs to be a sporting penalty in these instances as determined by the FIA." Now, this can put the FIA in a very tricky situation because the facts are already out there regarding what happened at the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix last year. The FIA acknowledged that Michael Masi messed up under pressure. As a result, the driver from the team that has breached the cost cap won the title. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're a Mercedes, Williams, Alfa, Ferrari, McLaren or Aston Martin fan, this is a weird situation for everybody to be in. And the news coming out last night was that Sulayem is going to be speaking to Christian Horner over an agreement that Red Bull can sign into making this whole thing go away, which I think the other teams aren't very happy about. It's expected that this will be like the super secret engine thing that Ferrari signed that made the whole thing get swept under the rug there too. By signing this ABA or whatever it's called, Red Bull basically admits they overspent, and the FIA can then go, right, you're now subject to X, Y and Z. But the punishments will be less than if they don't sign the document because they just basically be going, yeah, we're guilty. But what this has then done online is it's bringing up the whole Spygate thing and people saying people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, but that whole thing had nothing to do with Zak Brown in the first place. With Spygate, it was never proved that McLaren gained an advantage by looking at those blueprints. Okay, they knew about the nitrogen in the tyres and most likely tested that. They knew about a couple of other things, but no proof of whether they used those blueprints to gain a competitive advantage was ever found. They even had an FIA delegate assigned to the cars for 2008 to make doubly sure of this. And as you might remember, McLaren was thrown out of the 2007 championship. Now Red Bull is in the same boat. There's no proof that the overspend contributed to the performance of last year, and McLaren will have had this in mind since the rumours started. Proof they had Ferrari blueprints with no proof it was ever put to use, and thrown out. Overspent with no proof it had a lasting effect and now signed this document to make the whole thing go away. Now, I'm not saying that this is my exact opinion here, I'm trying to make you see this from McLaren and Zak Brown's point of view. They're thinking, we had this happen, and industrial espionage is cheating as much as busting a cost cap is. In addition to this whole cost cap thing was designed in such a way that teams like Alpine and McLaren could compete against the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull. And all these teams, Mercedes, Ferrari, Alpine, McLaren and so on, all complied with the rules. One team didn't, and this is naturally going to get Zak riled up because he's going to be saying to himself, well, why should I have to stick to these rules while that team gets to spend a little bit more money? How much more performance would I have got by spending an extra 3 or 4 million? But the thing is, this is Red Bull. Red Bull thinks it's still under the budget cap, and I doubt they will just sign the document and admit guilt. They're too proud to do that. They're too arrogant? Is that the operative word to use to do that? They might take the gamble on their appeal going through and them coming out under, and that might end up being a dangerous game of roulette to play. If they do sign the document, it then puts another one of the proverbial asterisks next to the 2021 season. So it's sign and admit guilt, or not sign, hoping you're under, and then end up potentially being thrown out of the 2021 championship altogether. Transparency is what everybody's calling for. The FIA know how much the breach was, but they're not telling anybody. The FIA seems to just be pussyfooting around things. Max Mosley, love him or hate him, would have probably had all this sorted by now. Spygate was sorted pretty much then and there by today's standards. It's taken 10 months for this to come to light and will probably be something that's not over very quickly, but watch as it is over quickly now I've just said that. But the FIA finally has the opportunity to show some teeth, to get the claws out, to show transparency and put the money where the mouth is after what we saw all of last season. And it should be noted that as part of the FIA's rules regarding the punishment of these breaches, that they can apply penalties to the season in question, which is 2021. If Red Bull signs this document, they can't do that, but they can put in some other penalties. But Zak Brown wants the sporting penalties to hit just as hard, if not harder, than any financial ones. There's the clip going round of Ross Brawn saying in 2019 that if you bust the cap, you'll be punished severely. And like I said, it's made all the more difficult because Red Bull won one of the two available titles after a bit of a calamity at the end of the last season because of the FIA. But with the potential, albeit slim one, of drivers' points being docked, it then opens up the whole why should Max be penalised for Red Bull's mistake debate. But we have precedents for this. Precedents that go back less than 12 months in fact. At the Hungarian Grand Prix, Vettel was disqualified from the race because of an issue with his car. The fuel meter was wrong. At Brazil, Hamilton was disqualified from qualifying because they found an opening about a millimetre too large in his rear wing. Wasn't Vettel's fault. Wasn't Hamilton's fault. This happens in other sports as well. At the Tokyo Olympics, the British 4x100 relay team was disqualified retroactively after CJ Uja was found to have tested positive for 2 prohibited substances. Uja was cleared of deliberately taking the banned substance, and it was later found that the substance in question was contained in some supplement he'd been taking during the pandemic that he'd been buying off Amazon. He didn't check the ingredients and was thrown out. But the other 3 members of that team, Zarnell Hughes, Richard Kilty and Nathaniel Mitchell-Blake, were all disqualified as well. So Canada was promoted into silver in place of Britain, and China up to 3rd. This also happened to Jamaica in 2017. Usain Bolt lost his triple-triple because Nestor Carter failed a drug test, meaning Bolt lost his gold medal from Beijing. In the case of the other 3 lads from the GB relay team and Bolt and his team, one person messing up got them all thrown out. So it can be done. I mean, look at football, where the clubs get docked points for going into administration. Not the fault of the players, the owners have little to no fiscal responsibility. The FIA set up this whole cost cap thing to huge fanfare and at the time was taking it very seriously. So all of the teams, with the exception of AlphaTauri, because they're going to be quite quiet, aren't they, quite rightly annoyed that this is all being dragged out and attempts are being made to get Red Bull to sign a piece of paper so they can just sweep it all under the rug and just let it go. And the longer things like this go on, the more the sport looks like a total omnishambles. So what is the FIA afraid of? Enforcing its own rules? Upsetting a rather vocal orange fan base? Digging itself a bigger hole? I mean, why the delays? Why the behind closed doors potential of signing of paperwork? Why this perceived attempt at sweeping things under the rug? Now, this kind of thing worked for Ferrari back in 2019 because Ferrari didn't win the championship, and Fernando Alonso even said this. Imagine if Ferrari had won titles that season with those iffy engines. The way it was dealt with was, in a way, in line with the fact that they didn't win. So people were annoyed that it was very confidential, but they didn't win. So in the grand scheme of things, it's no biggie. This, on the other hand, and I know I keep saying this, resulted in a, controversial driver's title for Max. And this is why this is the big deal people are making it out to be. Just answer the questions. It's like the scene from The Thick of It where Ben Swain is being grilled by Jeremy Paxman on Newsnight. Paxman is the teams and Blinky Ben is the FIA. If Red Bull escapes with a fine, which, with Red Bull's bankroll, it's a slap on the wrist, then that opens the floodgates. Ferrari are going to overspend. Mercedes have threatened to overspend. Mercedes will turn up with some sort of weapon of mass destruction in 2023 and just be like, yeah, screw it, we'll just sign the check. The whole thing brought in to cut costs and level the playing field suddenly becomes totally irrelevant and there's no point in having it. So the other 8 teams need to lobby and pressure the FIA to make sure that this is all handled properly, as it were. And it's not about Lewis. Let it be known that this is not about Lewis. This is about the sport not making itself look like a bunch of arseholes. So then, that's it for this. You know what to do. Leave comments down there. Like, subscribe, do whatever it is you kids do, and bell on so you never miss out on anything I do around here. Massive thanks as ever to the kind folk at Patreon for the support, and if you want to help out as I buy up pretty pictures for this channel, there are links in the description to Patreon, Discord and socials, or there's the super thanks down there if you want to refill my coffee cup. So until next time, I've been Aidan Millward. Have a great day wherever you live in the world, and I'll see you all again soon for another video. Goodbye.